Welcome to Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living. Join me, Chris.
And me, Jacqueline, for real conversations about life, death, and everything in between.
Learn to connect with your intrinsic power to grow and heal, how to laugh at your own humanness and not take life too seriously.
Through healthy conversations between the feminine and masculine, you learn how to harness the power of relationship and the mirror to befriend your shadow and to trust that any obstacle that gets in your way is there to help you grow.
Together, working at a practical level, you learn to trust that everything that is happening is for you, your growth, and ultimate freedom.
Our circumstances don't matter. It's only how we relate to them that does.
Get ready to befriend the wisdom of your body and the power of your mind.
Break Free and Trust starts now.
Welcome to Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jacqueline.
Inspired by the work we have done with our own clients, today we are going to explore why we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for what we can only give ourselves. Why do we have a tendency to abdicate responsibility for our needs to others? Needs like, I know how much we're loved, how we want to be treated, and even our validation and self-worth. Are we seeking something that no one but ourselves can give us? And how do we shift this to learn to befriend ourselves? This and much, much more in this episode of Break Free and Trust. And for live viewers, the show will also be open to questions in the second half. So please call in at 1-800-930-2819 or just write your questions in the chat. But before we begin, Jacqueline, we have a new offering we just announced today. Maybe you can tell our listeners about it.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. It'd be nice to actually see some new faces. Beginning the week of September 13th. So September 13th is a Saturday, and we haven't quite established what day of that week we're going to begin, but I think it will be on the Saturday. We are going to go through an 11-week program where we're going to take 5 couples through the presence process by Michael Brown. And that process will culminate in a 2.5-day retreat on Bowen Island at our home. If that's something that you're interested in looking into more or learning more about, you can visit my website, which is www.agatheringplace.ca, and click on retreats, and you'll find more information there and a way to contact us if you want to learn more.
All right. Thanks for that. Should be fun. Looking forward to it. Okay, back to the show. In many ways, I think this is a continuation of our conversation we had about relationship dynamics a few episodes ago. Maybe I can start by asking you to expand on what it is we mean by when we say we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for what we can only do for ourselves.
You know what? I'm actually going to take a step further back than that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So this episode in particular was really inspired by a conversation that I had with a client. And then the conversation that ensued afterwards between you and I around it. But what happened during that call for me with this particular gentleman was this really beautiful unveiling that what he desperately wanted from the world, he had never learned how to give to himself. And the suggestion that I made to him, and I'll be really specific, was what would happen if every morning when you woke up in the morning, as you were lying in bed, you greeted yourself and said, "Hey, how'd you sleep last night? How are you doing today?" And if as you sat down to have your quiet coffee on your own, you actually checked in with what was going on for you in that moment. And that doesn't, for some of you, that might sound a little bit crazy to talk to yourself. But for many of us, we actually have people in our lives to do that with. But there's also many people in the world that don't have anybody to do that with. They live alone, they're on their own. And the attention that gets focused on is on, what the truth is actually, whether you're living alone or you're living with a partner. Most people that live with partners don't get met in the way they want to either.
Right. Better check in.
Yeah, there you go. So whether you're living alone or with a partner, the question is, Are you meeting yourself with the energy that you want to be met with? Or are you looking outside for somebody to fulfill something inside of you that actually you've never even learned how to give yourself? And so for this particular client, one of the things that happened was this like, whoa, wait a minute. Like it kind of blew his mind for a second because it was like, you mean I can actually greet myself and give myself what it is that I've wanted or what I've been looking for outside? And my comment was, and I think this, we can take this through, well, we can carry this through the entire conversation, is that the only way that we can be met with what we're looking for is if the frequency that we're carrying is actually a match for what it is we want to draw in. Otherwise, we're going to continue to attract what it is we don't want. And so, Yogi Bhajan is famous for saying, fake it till you make it. And the idea here is can you create the level of energy that it is that you're wanting or that you're seeking, such that you actually begin to change your own vibration, and in doing so, begin to attract what you're looking for.
Okay, there's layers here. There's layers to this.
I mean, you and I sat in the car and talked about this for about 2.5 hours. There's so many layers to this.
Maybe I'll start and we go right back to the first question. So what starting point, what is it that we're needing or wanting to begin with?
Well, you name it.
Right.
I'm wanting to be loved. I'm wanting to be appreciated, acknowledged, admired, heard, listened to, seen. I'm wanting to be understood, and on and on and on and on and on. Right. But I've never taken the time necessarily, and I'm not speaking for myself in this moment. I've never taken this time necessarily to be able to actually go into some deep inquiry about what is it that what do I really want? Who am I? What is it that I'm looking to be acknowledged for? What do I most admire about myself? Who do I want to be in this world? What makes me feel like I'm of value in this world? And beginning to ask those questions shifts the conversation entirely. And I think, and maybe this is what you're actually asking me, is we live in a world that has us, and this is a conversation we started, I think, almost even in our first podcast. We live in a world that has us looking outside of ourselves for everything, whether it's to beautify ourselves, to improve our health, to improve our self-concept, whatever it is. Everything is outside. But we don't live in a culture that actually has us cultivate the depth of, has us cultivate who we are. And so often what we experience in relationship is I'm looking, let's say it's you and me, if I'm going to actually play with this, I'm looking for you to fulfill what feels empty in me, rather than for looking at you to actually mirror back to me where I'm not nourishing myself. And so relationships don't actually often work because relationships become vampiric on some level. They become parasitic on some level because we're looking outside of ourselves for what we're actually needing deeply inside.
There's a couple things to jump. The first is, we can express the way to express these needs. We can bucket them like it's love, it's validation, it's respect, things like that. These seem pretty common. If we're all needing the same thing, why does it not work to look inside ourselves? I know what you need, you know what I need. We're all looking for the same thing.
It's a pretty big question. Because those needs aren't something that anybody else can fulfill for us. Those are deep needs that we have to be able to meet ourselves. And really, in essence, it's almost like in my belief structure, which is going to be different for all of you, and so take it with a grain of salt, is that we've come here to experience our souls in human form. And in order to do that, what's needing to be met is our soul more than it is our human how would I say it? The needs that we're talking about, I'm going to go back. The needs that we're talking about aren't needs that you can go and buy in a store. They're not needs that somebody can just hand you and say, here you go. Nobody can fulfill those for you, because actually that's the path of being human, is to actually journey through the process of recognizing that the needs that we actually have ultimately are to come into flow and alignment with something much deeper than our ego. And it looks like coming into alignment with our soul. And I don't believe, and from my own personal experience, and I have a wonderful partner, I do not believe that another person can fulfill that for us. And the challenge with being a human in our society, and I can only speak for ours because it's the one that I live in, is that we're not taught how to do that internal work. We're left feeling, it feels barren. And there's not a lot of teachers guiding us to ourselves.
Interesting. Yeah. And so there's this piece that predates even birth in terms of a soul contract. We come in for whatever karma we have. And I suppose also, and maybe that's not your belief system. I think another place this can emerge too is when we're infants and we're born, we actually are 100% dependent on someone else to meet our needs. We can't meet our needs at that stage. I believe it takes a mature adult or mature-ish adult to then have the ability to self-actualize and begin to meet their own needs. But there's this space where those needs need to be met by others in some way, shape, or form. And it's very likely that in that process, many of our needs are not going to get met, despite the best attempts of people to meet those needs, or maybe not attempts at all. But there's going to be this big period of time where many of those needs are feeling like they're not being met.
And I think that piece around human beings coming in and being wholly dependent on another is 100% true. What I think happens is that when we're babies and we're uncomfortable, somebody meets our needs.
Yeah.
Or hopefully meets our needs. Yeah. For some, that's not true.
Or we're certainly looking for them to meet our needs.
100%. Yeah. And
hardwiring.
Totally. Yeah. But I think that unfortunately that hardwiring exists for us to survive.
Yes.
As we grow and mature, we're actually meant to learn how to be with our own discomfort and learn how to find our way through it. But as a society, discomfort means looking outside of ourselves for answers.
And I think this is the crux of it. I really want to inquire on this. Why is it? It seems to be, as on a societal level, we continue to look outside ourselves once we get into adulthood, when we're fully able to, we have the capacity to look inside, yet we seem societally to still continue to look outside. What's behind this thing?
I mean, I think that you probably have as many answers for that question as I do. I can tell you that the first things that come to my mind is we live in a society, in a capitalist society, where what we want is more, better, bigger. And we live in a world that's driven by social media, where everybody gets to put what looks like their best foot forward, where, we see the most beautiful, most often dreamt up versions of people out there, and we want to all be like them. Yeah. And nobody looks like they're suffering. Nobody looks like they're in pain. And it's not, it's not cool to be, it's not cool to be struggling and finding your way through your strife. It's cool to have gotten to a place where everybody can look at you and see this bright, shiny star that they want to be like. But the truth is I don't know, those bright, shiny stars, they're not so bright and shiny underneath their social media. And every single one of us, if we're going to grow, is going to struggle and face ourselves and have to look at our shadows. And it starts inside. Friendship is an inside job. Relationship is an inside job. And the strife that exists and the drama that exists in relationship exists because we think it's meant to come to us rather than from us.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I was really thinking deeply what you said there. It's not only looking, so we're looking outside to get our quote needs met, but we actually haven't even really looked inside to see what those needs are. Or it's almost like, oh, that person XYZ on the internet that has all this money and this attractive partner, all this stuff. If I had that, my needs would be met. But I don't even know what my needs are. I'm just assuming now that if I had all these things that look shiny, my needs are met. But the issue is we actually haven't even looked at what those needs are. We haven't really looked at ourselves to find out what is it I'm actually craving. I'm just going to transpose that if these things that society's been pointing at, if I get those things, then my needs are met.
Yeah. And I don't think that we have language necessarily to help us describe what our actual needs are. There's yearnings, there's feelings of desire, there's feelings of wanting. But to actually have the voice to speak to what those needs are, especially if they go countercurrent to what's happening around us, is really challenging. And I mean, I can tell you that through some of my own personal work, when I hear myself speak to my wants or needs, which I've become quite comfortable at doing at this stage, and not always, it's still sometimes a struggle. What I'm faced with are questions like, is it okay for me to need that? Is it acceptable for me to want that? Because a lot of those things go counter to all the stories that I've told me about what it means to be strong, what it means to be capable, what it means to be, in quotations, a successful human being. And it's only in uncovering and unveiling and unlayering some of of the clutter, that we can actually get to that place of, what do I really want in this moment? And not in front of another person, but actually even just in front of the mirror of myself. That's not an easy thing for most people to do.
No, and what jumped into me there too is this idea that as we're growing up and we're creating this story to survive in a sense and going through this process of having some of our needs met and others, I think what develops in a lot of people is a limiting belief system, or just another word for a story. And I think one of the most, for the clients I work with, some of the most profound limiting belief systems that show up, and these are mine too for many, many years. I'm not enough, and I'm not worthy of love. And if that's the case, then I'm actually saying to myself, I don't even deserve to have my needs met. And I certainly can't meet them myself. I mean, I'm not worthy. I mean, so my best guess is to go out and hopefully get lucky and somebody can meet those needs for me, but I don't even think I'm worth it.
And if I don't believe that I'm worth it, or if I don't believe that I'm worthy, or I don't believe that I'm loved, and that's actually the frequency that I'm walking around going to seek relationship out of, inevitably I will sabotage that relationship to prove that truth.
Right.
And so I'm seeking it, but I'm not vibrating it. And so what I'm vibrating is what I'm ultimately going to attract, which then proves to me that I am unworthy and I am unlovable. So when I say to you that I believe that friendship, relationship is an inside job, it's an inside job because first I need to meet myself with actions, behaviors, beliefs that speak to my worthiness. And I think so often we look at things like affirmations, let's just say as an example, to feed that. And And okay, I think there's power in affirmation to a certain degree.
Well, fake it till you make it. It's part of
A
that, right?
100%. But I actually think that we can start further back. And and this comes back to our original episode, I think, or maybe the second one, where how can I show myself that I'm worthy or that I'm worth loving? Well, I can do it in very basic ways. I can show myself I'm worth loving because when I'm tired, I can go to sleep rather than drink coffee to override my tired, which says that my tired has no value. When I'm thirsty, I can stop and drink a glass of water. When I'm hungry, I can begin to nourish myself. So often, what we do is we poo poo those simple basic needs constantly in ourselves in such a way that actually keeps communicating the language of I'm not worthy. So if I can begin to tend to myself, even on simple ways with consistency, what I begin to do is build trust with myself, and I begin to communicate that I am worthy of being cared for by caring for myself. And as I continue down that path, I can begin to grow that more and more.
Yeah, what you're talking about is it's a radical reprioritization to put yourself first, as opposed to putting yourself last and discounting your needs for others. Because I think what comes out of this, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy of love, leading to fears of abandonment, rejection, and discounting our own needs, is that we're most likely unconsciously, as you said, to put our needs at the bottom of the pile and burn ourselves out for everybody else, not eating properly, not sleeping enough, not taking care of ourselves because we're just not important enough. And it's the flipping that around on its head is the practical starting point to understanding your needs.
I think I think that's true, and I think that there's room for a shift in that on some level, which is that just because I'm not taking care of myself doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be the person that's taking care of everybody else. Right?
Right.
We have different ways of managing that energy. So, yes, I'm not taking care of my needs. I'm going to be communicating to the people around me that I'm not valuable. Some people's compensatory mechanism, both yours and mine, were to sacrifice our needs for other people and therefore put ourselves last. Other people do it differently.
Say more on that.
Well, not everybody becomes people pleasers or caregivers. If I'm not of value, another compensatory mechanism could be to become very valuable looking, where I all of a sudden strive to be the head of a business, to be incredibly successful, to do things that outrun my feeling of unworthiness and superficially give me a sense of worth.
Well, so then I would, it's interesting. That's because that was a big part of my story too. And I look back at that encountering, that was also abandoning my own needs.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay, we're saying the same thing. Yeah, I was doing that because I was trying to get validation from everyone else to be worthy.
I think where I was trying to clarify is that you said we're bending over backwards for other people and whatever else. I think that's one way.
Right.
Another way is to be seeking it
rest
through
other people.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I understand.
100%.
You know, I think let's take a break here.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll come back in a few more minutes.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, and we're back. This got me thinking about relationships in general. So if we have, just stylized example, there's two people out there looking to get their needs met and they're dating all sorts of people. And then they meet that person. It's like, there they are. My lock fits their key. They're both sort of feel like they're meeting each other's needs. What's happening there? Because I think we've all been like where it feels so good for a little bit, like everything's working, everything's being met, and then suddenly something totally changes. What's the dynamic that's happening there, the context of what we're talking about?
Well, I think that there could be many dynamics that are going on there. So I'll speak to one.
Yeah.
If my insecurities that might not even be known to me meet somebody else's insecurities that might not even be known to them. And all of a sudden, in some ways, I get to hide and they get to hide. And what I get to feel is all of the good things that come out in me. I don't have to feel any of my darker stuff.
Yeah.
And neither do they. It feels like I can rest, right? And that does feel really great for a while, because it means that all that I want to be, everything in me that I want people to see gets seen by this person, and everything that they want to have seen gets seen by me. And it feels wonderful for a period of time. The challenge is that we can't outrun our shadows for very long. And ultimately, my shadows are going to start to show up, and that might make the other person very uncomfortable. It might make me uncomfortable, and then dynamics change. And what, I can still remember, I met, how old was I when I met you? 45?
One?
40, no,
sorry.
41.
I tell people your age, right?
I turned 50 in September. So
46.
46 wasn't when I met you. I met you a couple of years before that, but 46 was when we started dating. And I remember, I had had many relationships and I had done a ton of this work beforehand. But there was some part of me that was very scared of actually meeting my match. And I didn't understand that completely. I had a teacher that kept saying to me, "Are you ready for divine union?" And my response, interestingly, because relationship has always been really important to me, was, I don't think I want that in this lifetime. Like, I think I'm good with my friendships. I think I'm good with my kids. I think I'm okay. And having met you, I can say, I understand exactly why I was terrified of divine union. And this is a big piece of the work that we are going to be offering in September with a group of 5 couples, is ultimately what divine union actually brings us to is that there's no escaping yourself. There's no hiding from yourself, because the opportunity is to actually have mirrored to you nothing other than you, exactly as you are, with no capacity to project onto somebody else what you don't want to see. And that is the most beautiful and powerful journey into relationship, both with another person and with self, and the most challenging.
Right. Like I want to respond to that by backing up where you started, but I want to come back to divine union too, because that's where I saw this going. Is that when two people meet, and again, when haven't looked at the rejected parts of themselves, so they're sort of asleep, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. It's just like haven't done the self work, haven't really observed themselves. It's like they meet this person, and I think that person meets their needs. Well, I'm not feeling worthy of love, or I'm not feeling enough. So I'm going to wear a mask to make it look so I'm meeting that person's needs. I'm at least going to pretend to meet that person's needs. Well, they're also doing the same thing. So there's two people wearing their masks and they feel like this perfect fit, but both of them unconsciously are wearing this mask in a relationship that eventually is going to slip over time. And those rejected parts of themselves are going to come into the relationship as a big surprise to each of them. And it's actually, it's our own rejected parts, not our partners, that cause the problems.
Yeah. And there's also this piece, which is, I love that you spoke to the masks, because the masks that protect us or defend us or keep us safe, which is why we wear them, are also the very things that get in the way of us feeling seen, understood, heard, etc. Because nobody can see us for real, because the mask is front and center. And I think in large part, we don't even realize that we're wearing a mask.
Well, we've used it to survive our whole life. We wouldn't know.
So it's like, it's almost like when we look at ourselves and we see our flesh, What we're actually seeing is the mask that's sitting on top
Yep.
of that flesh. And we don't even know that we're not living in alignment or in truth because it's been with us for so long.
Yeah. Well, we're living in fear. When we come back, that's sort of been this thing that's traveled through our podcast, is unless we've looked at ourselves, unless we really observe ourselves, wearing a mask that's driven by fear. And if we go into a relationship with a mask based on fear, eventually it's going to show up. And you make it through, you may not, you might resolve it, but it's the price will have to be paid on it, in a sense.
Yeah. And there's also, I think that within a relationship, when the mask is there, there's not just that underlying fear shows up as there's a vibration of angst that's there all the time that we don't even really know is there until we no longer feel the need to wear the mask.
Yeah. And I almost want to define, like, I'm going to create like its definition for divine union for today. It's that it's two people coming into relationships with their best attempts to remove the mask, trying to show up and say, I'm going to do my best to take my mask off, and I've done some work to take it off, but actually the relationship itself is going to be what allows me to take it fully off over time. I want you to see the rejected parts of me. I want you to see the shadows so you can mirror them back to me so I can confront them. And if both partners are doing that, what creates some magic?
And to be fair, that's not very common.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not very common for us to be in a place where we feel safe enough with another human being to be able to really play masks off without getting into behaviors of shaming and blaming. It really takes, that kind of relationship takes huge commitment on both parties.
What's the catalyst for it? How does it happen for some people and not others?
So I'm not all knowing. I can't answer these questions from that place. I can only answer them from my own experience.
Of course, as with everything.
Yeah. I think that the step in the right direction to drawing a relationship like that with another person is to begin to be willing to do that with yourself. There has to be a willingness for you to be naked, transparent, willing to be exposed. And I know that for me, that began long before you. It began in my work as a teacher. It began in my friendships. And for me, it was driven by a hunger to know myself, right? Or a hunger to be myself. I can remember, this is such a silly story, but I can remember moving to Vancouver and making this new group of friends. And I had left everything that I knew. I remember sitting at a dinner table, having a conversation one night over at a dinner party. And we were talking about movies and the kind of movies that we liked. And I remember sitting and saying, well, my favorite movies are romantic comedies. And I had this I was anxious inside, waiting to be totally shamed for that. Because in my lifetime, growing up, it was, you needed a movie that was intellectual, that challenged you, that, and the acting had to be this. And I just wanted to be moved by a story. And I remember a bunch of people sitting at the table and jumping in and saying, oh, me too. And did you see this one? And did you see that one? And I just remember having this feeling of my nervous system just quieted some, where it was even in just that small way, I got to expose the true me and you got to see the true me. And I didn't get shamed for it. And that made me want to be more of me. It's those little things, right? But it's so easy to diminish each other. It's not so easy to create space for each other.
I feel as that I hear you saying, and I feel like chicken and the egg thing in here. So someone's creating the safe space, or both are creating the safe space. But how does that person or both people start with? How can you be the safe space creator? Is the question. Where does that come from?
Well, I mean, I think a safe space creator is somebody who's compassionate. And compassion is an inside job. Compassion doesn't exist for another person before it can begin to exist for yourself. And so I think, again, there is this place of self reflexivity and an ability to be a decent observer and witness of oneself. When we do that, we begin to see ourselves fully, not just the good, but you see the good, you see the bad, you see the ugly, you see the beautiful, you see it all. And when you can begin to observe yourself in that way, you can begin to also create space for other people in that way. And then I would say to you, if you were going to go chicken and egg, I would say, in the same way, somebody who can hold space for that in themselves becomes an invitation for somebody else to step in. And the more we continue to do that with each other, the more we create a spaciousness. And in that spaciousness, there's no need to shame or diminish, because we recognize that spaciousness is actually abundance and there's no scarcity there, which means that we all have room to shine and dance with our shadows.
I really like that word compassion, because we break it down. What compassion means is passion for everything and everyone, but most importantly, yourself. And I think that's the fundamental thing is like, work with so many people and come across so many people that have this appearance of compassion for everything, but they actually hate themselves inside. So it's not real. It's not real compassion. And I firmly believe it's the other way around. Learn to love yourself, have passion for yourself, self-love, and then it will just flow out of you. You won't be able to help it. It's like we have this container of love in us that is sort of half full as we go through life, and we're constantly looking for someone to fill it up, but it just keeps leaking out. And it's only us that can fill it. But once we fill it, it starts to overflow and goes to everywhere else. I think from that place, we become the creators of this safe space. But it comes back to this word compassion. Do I have compassion for myself? Do I know myself? Do I accept the rejected parts of myself? Do I love that traumatized little boy or girl inside? Do I love myself for all my faults? Can I accept them and live with them? Can I truly love myself? That's the place to start from, instead of doing it externally.
You said a lot there. And, all of those questions of, do I love myself? Can I accept myself completely for all my faults, etc.? Like, as many of you, well, I'm sure as all of you know, that's big work. That's not work that happens overnight. It's not work that anybody, I'm not sure any of us ever get there completely. That's a place where
we're not enlightened. I mean, that's the end goal of enlightenment.
Speak for yourself. I'm just kidding.
I'm definitely not enlightened.
Just play. But it's lifetime. It's a lifetime of work, and it's a lifetime of work because it's constant work of checking in and rechecking. But I think that there's something very important about what you said about compassion. And it's tied to something that we spoke about in one of our previous podcasts, which is that, in Brene Brown's work, one of the things that she speaks so beautifully is that the people who are able to be compassionate, the most compassionate in the world, have one thing in common, which is boundaries. And I speak to that because I think that there is this misnomer that in order to be in relationship, what we need to do is we need to sacrifice and compromise in order to meet somebody else's needs. And while relationship often is pivoting, right? We're often pivoting to meet the needs that are showing up in any given moment. I do not believe that relationship is about compromise and sacrifice. I think relationship is about being able to constantly check in with whether or not we're actually coming to each other with compassion. And if we're not, then it's because we're violating our boundaries to try and meet another person's needs. And we have to check back in to meet our own and then come back into relationship. And I think that's really important because relationship is meant to be about two people coming to create a third entity.
Mm.
But what often happens in relationship is that two people grind at each other enough that we're diminishing each other and ourselves. And then whatever it is that we're creating isn't actually a third entity, it's a diminished version of each of ourselves.
I mean, it's like, I agree. We touched on this last time, is most relationships, when people don't know who they are and are looking for the other person to meet their needs, simply is creates conflict. And so what relationships just become is conflict. You're not meeting my needs, I'm not meeting your needs, because, well, no one actually understands what my needs are but me. It's impossible for someone else to meet my needs. So it just creates conflict. And that's, and as you point out, in a healthy relationship, it's not this molding and changing and fighting. It's like, can I accept? Can I understand? And can I be curious? Because that leads to the dilution of conflict.
And can I be willing to recognize that things are going to show up in life and in relationship that are going to challenge my identity, that are going to challenge my views of myself and another person, that are going to make me feel unworthy at times, that are going to tap into or trip up my insecurities? And can I have the capacity to look inward and do the work inside before I project that all over my partner?
Yeah. Well, and recognizing, and to put a pin in that, is in divine union. Not only is that going to happen, that's why I'm in divine union. I've done the looking at myself, and now I need to be in a relationship to actually get the reflection fully back to all those things you mentioned. I'm actually looking for now.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the feedback. I'm looking for the reflection. I want to see the parts that I've continued to hide from me. And you talked about, this idea that this is not overnight. It's lifelong work. Well, Gurdjieff, who's a spiritual teacher of mine, I mean, he calls it the work. And it says at some point, as we go through this process, we awaken to the idea that it's the work and it's the only work. It's the only work that has any value to it anymore. Is this idea of figuring out who we are and observing ourselves and understanding ourselves. And even points out that through relationship is one of the four ways of the work. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Because where does it lead us? I mean, that's the question I have. So why do the work? Why be in divine union? What's the outcome of the path? Like, why would someone want to pursue this? Because it doesn't sound like it's easy.
So can I answer super transparently and being very silly, but
Yeah.
honestly?
Yeah.
For me, it looks like this. Last night or two nights ago, we were getting ready for bed. And I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth. And I came out of the bathroom with my toothbrush in my mouth, jumping up and down, dancing, shaking like a complete idiot, laughing my face off. And you were just giggling with me. And I went back to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I smiled like this huge internal smile. Because what happens is freedom. What happens is a lightness. What happens is a willingness to, to embody the child that entered this world before he or she or they needed to be anybody for anybody other than themselves. Mm-hmm. So as I'm sitting here talking to you, what I can remember is I remember this little girl that was jumping up and down on her parents' bed with her crazy curls with reckless abandon. And where I have come to in my relationship with you is that place where I can just fully be myself. And where does it get to is this place, it's a place of play, right? There's a place where all of this seems so serious and heavy. And you know what? facing your ego and dancing with your shadow and doing all of that, both with yourself and in relationship, it can be really hard. But on the other side of that is a lightness of being, mask free, armor free, where that lightness is actually, it's coupled with ease. It feels like flow.
Yeah. And recognizing and acknowledging that's the work you've done. And
Yeah.
I've just been a mirror. I just showed up at life in your life at a time when you're ready to see the reflection I was prepared to give you.
100%.
Because I'm not going to, I do my best. Well, because we're trying to do our best not to project our own stuff. So when stuff happens between Jack and I, it's like, you know, in the past, I would have immediately been looking to blame and project, and I can't believe what this person did. And now it's like I'll immediately pause and recognize that gets me nowhere. Step out and look at myself. Like I know the parts of me that I've tried to hide my whole life. I know the things that trigger me. Like what's going on with me? Can I use this as an opportunity to look deeper into myself and resolve something within?
So I'll ask you the same question you asked me. Friendship, relationship is an inside job.
Yeah.
And you do the work. You witness yourself. You get really honest with yourself. You become transparent with self. Where has that gotten you in relationship with me and in relationship with the world outside? Why do this work? For me, it was dancing and being silly. I mean, there's many other reasons, but that's a big one. What is it for you?
I mean, I'm going to sum it up. I'll sum it up with the word and then I'll come back to it. It's peace.
Mhm.
It's pure peace. And with peace is joy. It's everything. Peace is everything to me. It's the highest on David Hawking's map of consciousness. It sits below enlightenment. And it's that feeling of peace I get. And I want to come back. It's because it's interesting. This story is like, as most of our listeners know, we've listened before, I have a path of recovery to the work. Recovery and addiction got me to do the work. And there's this sort of suggestion in recovery is do not date in your first year. And it's you know, like I didn't understand at the time, but I certainly understand it now. You're a mess. You've blown yourself up. You have no idea who you are. You've just started the work. You've just started to figure yourself up. And by the time you get to that sort of year point, maybe it's 2 years, it doesn't really matter. You've done enough work on yourself away from people, not in a relationship where your projections are going to be there. And you start to find, and I started to find, and I speak from my own experience, a lot of inner peace. I'm starting to understand how I work. I'm starting to understand why I react certain ways. And now I'm not reacting anymore. So I'm not now in conflict with myself anymore, or very rarely, sometimes, but very rarely. And then I move into a relationship and I meet you, someone else who's done a lot of the work and who's also not in conflict with themselves. So now we're in this relationship where, as you know, as particularly as time goes on, we're in conflict less and less. We're fully taking this role of mirrors to each other to see our own light and shine it back to each other. And what it creates is peace in myself, peace in a relationship, and then peace in everyone in our sphere. It creates a very peaceful existence and ultimately with the entire world, given enough time.
So I'm listening to you and it sounds very peaceful and, tra-la-la. And well, all of that's true. And I've experienced it along the way. And I want to make this clear. It's like there are moments of reactivity. There are moments where we play smaller than we are. There are moments where we get caught up in our egos and we can be assholes. And what I experience in that is this: one, we don't shame each other for it,
Yep.
but create a space, enough spaciousness for one of us, both of us, or whatever, to come back and say, hey, I felt really insecure there, or I got triggered in that, or this is what happened for me. I'm really sorry I put that on you. And for what it's worth, most often that's me coming back.
Oh, closer to 50-50. But I want to jokingly say that the times when there's very few times when both of us have been able to do that, and we both come in thinking I've done the work, and bam, bang, it's a messy one. But anyways, that's honestly our best learnings have come from those few incidences where it's like, wow, it's like that was hectic.
Yeah, totally.
But again, the thing about the piece is like when those things happen now, at the end of it, and I'll speak about it in my men's group and whatnot, some of them, and just like I talk about it in terms of the opportunity it created to deepen our relationship, to deepen my self-knowledge. Like it's just nothing but good stuff comes out of it when you start to enter a relationship saying, hey, I work on myself. I've got my own things to do. I have no control over what my partner does. I don't want to change them. I want to learn how to accept them the way they are. But boy, can they help me learn about me? If you're doing that, even if you choose doing that in your own relationship, you'll transform the entire relationship. If both of you are doing it, you have this real opportunity to transform everyone around you.
It's an incredible thing to be a part of and an incredible thing to witness. And I think just to come back to the beginning of our show, it's part of the reason why we want to take 5 couples through the presence process, because the presence process, which is a process by Michael Brown, it's an internal process. It's an individual process. It's not a process that is for couples. But by its design, it has us take radical responsibility for how we show up. And to take that further and then to engage a couple in that feels like potential, right? And that's why we're stepping into this kind of work.
Yeah, and we're getting close to the end here, and the title of its Friend Side is an inside job. Friendship is an inside job, and we've talked so far mostly around romantic relationships, one-on-one relationships for ourselves. But like, I want to use an opportunity. So there's some real global implications for what we're talking about here. Like, in the sense that, if we look around us, I talked about this idea that when we're outsourcing our needs to others, we're constantly putting ourselves in a position of conflict because nobody knows how to meet our needs. We don't know how to articulate them. So we're always in conflict with people around us who are asking, expecting to meet our needs. And that is absolutely true of our world leaders. And if we look around the world right now, there just seems to be so much conflict now and in the past, whenever, because once again, I believe what we're doing is we're constantly trying to elect people and put people in power that will meet our needs. And they're not going to meet our needs. They don't even know what their own needs are. They certainly don't know what our needs are. And we're just constantly going to be putting ourselves in conflict with everything and everyone when we keep outsourcing. Stop doing it. And honestly, spend the time to understand and observe yourself. What are my needs? How can I meet them? I'm going to put all my energy on there, not in the Twitter comment section, the Facebook comment section. I'm going to put on, what are my needs? How can I meet them? How can I do that myself? If you do that, maybe you inspire the next person to do that, and the world will change overnight, because the people in power are not going to meet our needs. They never have.
And they never will.
Only you can do it.
Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.
You've been listening to me, Chris.
And me, Jacqueline, on Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living.
Tune in every second and fourth Monday at 3 p.m. on Transformation Talk Radio for more real conversations about life, death, and everything in between.
Learn to connect with your intrinsic power to grow and heal, how to laugh at your own humanness and not take life too seriously.
Through healthy conversations between the feminine and the masculine, you will learn how to harness the power of relationship and the mirror to befriend your shadow, and to trust that any obstacle that gets in your way is there to help you grow.
For more information or to connect with us personally, visit theway-healing.com. That's theway-healing.com.